So I thought that I would go through and maybe read a couple League of Legends champion bios. And if you guys haven't guessed, you can find me on League with the same name. And who knows? Maybe we can play together sometime. Or yeah. So I'm on the official League of Legends website. And I haven't really picked anything out. I think I'm gonna go ahead and start with my favorite character, Ashe, the Frost Archer. I really like her. She kind of captured my imagination right at the beginning. So, let's get started. With each arrow she fires from her ancient ice-enchanted bow, Ashe proves she is a master archer. She chooses each target carefully, waits for the right moment, and then strikes with power and precision. It is with this same vision and focus that she pursues her goal of uniting the tribes of the Freljiord and forging them into a mighty nation. As a child, Ashe was always a dreamer. She marveled at the colossal abandoned fortresses of her ancestors and spent hours by the fire listening to tales of the Freljiord's fabled champions. Most of all, she loved the legend of Avarosa, the renowned queen of the once magnificent and united Freljiord. Though her mother chided her foolishness, Ashe swore one day she would join the scattered and warlike tribes of the tundra. She knew in her heart that if her people would stand together once more, they would reach greatness again. When Ashe was only 15, her mother was killed while commanding the tribe on a brash raid. Suddenly thrust into the role of leader, Ashe made the difficult decision to follow her childhood vision instead of seeking the revenge she craved. She spoke passionately against her tribe's demand for retribution, declaring the time had come to put blood feuds aside and broker a lasting peace. Some of her warriors questioned her fitness to rule and soon hatched a treasonous plot to kill the young leader. The assassins struck while Ashe was on a routine hunt, but their plan was interrupted by the warning cry of a great hawk. Ashe looked back to see her tribesmen approaching with swords drawn. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, Ashe ran for hours. She found herself deep in uncharted territory, her weapon lost in the chase. When she heard another cry from the hawk, Ashe put her faith in the strange creature and followed it to a clearing. There, she found the bird perched on a pile of stones, an ancient Freljiord burial cairn. With a last glance at her, the hawk screeched and flew away. Approaching the mound, Ashe felt her breath turn to frost, and an unnatural cold chill her bottom. The stone at the top of the cairn was marked with a single rune, Avarosa. The assassins burst into the clearing. Ashe lifted the runestone from the cairn to defend herself, revealing something hidden underneath, an ornate bow carved from ice. She grasped it, crying out in pain as frost formed on her fingers and tore the bow from its resting place. Cold flowed from the enchanted weapon into Ash, awakening a tremendous power that had always lived within her. Ash turned to face the assassins. She drew the bow and by sheer instinct willed arrows of pure ice to form from the cold, crisp air. With a single frozen volley, she ended the insurrection. Carefully replacing the cairnstone, she gave thanks to Avarosa for her gift and returned home. Ash's tribe immediately recognized the legendary weapon in the archer's hand as a blessing from the ancient Freljiord queen herself. With Avarosa's bow and her vision of peaceful unification, Ash's tribe soon swelled, becoming the largest in the Freljiord. Now known as the Avarosan, they stand together with the belief that a united Freljiord will once again become a great nation. I really like her. Let's just stick with the Freljiord, shall we? Let's go with the Nivea. I also really like her. The Cryo Phoenix. Nivea is a being of the coldest winter, a mystical embodiment of ice magic, and an ancient protector of the Freljiord. She commands all the power and fury of the land itself, calling the snow and bitter wind to defend her home from those who would harm it. A benevolent but mysterious creature, Nivea is eternally bound to keep vigil over the Freljiord through life, death, and rebirth. Nivea is as much a part of the Freljiord as the never-ending frost. Long before mortals had ever set foot on the land's frigid tundra, she had lived countless lifetimes and died as many deaths. The beginnings and ends of her eternal cycle always heralded great change, from the calming of raging storms to the ebb and flow of ice ages. It is said that when the Cryo Phoenix dies, an era ends, and when she is reborn, a new era begins. Though Nivea's past lifetimes have faded from her memory, she knows her purpose. She must protect the Freljiord at all costs. When she was last reborn, Nivea witnessed the rise of a mighty and united human tribe. She guarded their lands with pride as they prospered, but such unity could not last forever. The great tribe fractured into three, and after that upheaval, Nivea watched the people of the Freljiord become embroiled in battle. As she strove to calm the turmoil tearing her home apart, Nivea began to sense a greater threat, an ancient evil growing deep within the earth. To her horror, she felt the pure magic of the ice itself become blackened and corrupt. Like blood in winter, darkness crept into the Freljiord. With her destiny so tied to the power of the land, Nivea knew if such evil took root in her home, that same darkness would find its way into her heart. She could no longer remain a mere guardian. The Cryo Phoenix had to act. Anivia soon discovered an ally in Ash, the Frost Archer. Ash, too, believed in unification as an end to the Freljiord's perpetual strife, and Anivia offered the tribal leader her aid. Now, with war on the horizon, Anivia prepares to fight for peace, but she knows the inevitable truth of her destiny. One day, evil will rise from the ice, and she must destroy it, no matter the cost. How about Lysandra, the Ice Witch? Okay. Lysandra's magic twists the pure power of ice into something dark and terrible. With the force of her black ice, she does more than freeze. She impales and crushes those who oppose her. To the terrified denizens of the north, she is known only as the Ice Witch. The truth is much more sinister. Lysandra is a corrupter of nature who plots to unleash an ice age on the world. Centuries ago, Lysandra betrayed her tribe to evil creatures known as the Frozen Watchers in return for power. That was the last day that warm blood ran through her veins. With her corrupted tribesmen and the strength of the Watchers, she swept across the land like a terrible blizzard. As her empire spread, the world grew colder and ice choked the land. When the Watchers were defeated by ancient heroes, Lysandra did not lose faith and swore to prepare the world for their return. Lysandra worked to purge all knowledge of the Watchers from the world. Using magic to take human form, she masqueraded as numerous seers and elders. Over the course of generations, she rewrote the stories of the Freljiord, and so the history of its people changed. Today, the fragmented retellings of the Watchers are seen as children's tales, but this deception wasn't enough. Lysandra also needed an army. She set her sights on the noble Frostguard tribe. Lysandra knew corrupting the Frostguard would take centuries, and so she launched her greatest deception. She murdered and stole the identity of the Frostguard leader. Then she slowly began to warp the tribe's proud traditions. When her human form grew old, she faked her own death, and then murdered her successor to steal her identity. With each generation, the Frostguard grew more insular, cruel, and twisted. Today, the world still sees them as a noble and peaceful tribe that guards against evil creatures like the Ice Witch. In truth, they now serve the witch and long for the glorious return of the Watchers. Lysandra knows that on that day, nations will fall and the world will be reborn in ice. Let's see if I can't find the leader of the third tribe. Scroll. Sejuani, the Winter's Wrath. Sejuani was weaned on hardship and reared on barbarity. Where others succumbed to the harshness of the Freljiord, she was tempered by it until pain became power, hunger an encouragement, and frost an ally in culling the weak. Through her ordeals, she learned that to thrive in the endless winter, one must become just as cold and unforgiving. In Sejuani's eyes, her followers either have the mettle to endure or the right to die. Once she has conquered the Freljiord, she knows that those who survive will form a nation to be feared. As a child, the leader of the Winter's Claw watched her tribe's numbers slowly dwindle. Cold and starvation took all but the most resilient. She was the only one of her siblings to survive to her 10th year, leaving Sejuani sure that she too would die in misery. In desperation, she sought spiritual counsel from her tribe's mystic, but the seer did not foretell Sejuani's death. Instead, she prophesied that Sejuani would one day conquer and unite the divided tribes of the Freljiord. Armored with absolute faith in her destiny, Sejuani pushed herself to extremes that would have killed anyone without her will to endure. She walked into blizzards without food or furs and trained while frigid winds raked her flesh. She clashed with the strongest warriors of her tribe, one after another, until her legs gave out beneath her. When she assumed leadership of her tribe, Sejuani commanded her warriors to follow her example. Under her rule, the tribe grew stronger than they had ever been. In the end, it was an offer of peace rather than an act of war that began Sejuani's campaign of conquest. On the first day of winter, envoys from Ash's tribe approached Sejuani's camp bearing a gift of Avarosan grain. Ash's intent was clear. If Sejuani united with her tribe, the Winter's Claw would never go hungry again. To Sejuani, the gift was an insult. In Ash's tribe, she saw men and women, slight and soft, who preferred to farm instead of fight. Her contempt for them was absolute. Sejuani gathered her people and set the grain alight. She proclaimed that Ash's offer of charity would bring only weakness. Stripping the envoys of their supplies, Sejuani sent them back with a message. The Winter's Claw would prove to the Avarosan that only the strong deserve to survive in the Freljiord. As the grain burned behind them, Sejuani rode out with her war band to inflict the first of many painful lessons to come. Let's take a little look-see on my recording software. Make sure everything is still actually recording and see how long it is. About only 20 minutes. I think that we've got time for more. So I'm just going to start clicking on whatever I see that pops up that I think sounds cool. That says Freljiord. We'll just keep it Freljiord themed today. Start with Olaf the Berserker. Most men would say that death is a thing to be feared. None of those men would be Olaf. The Berserker lives only for the roar of a battle cry and the clash of steel. Spurred on by his hunger for glory and the looming curse of a forgettable death, Olaf throws himself into every fight with reckless abandon. Surrendering to the bloodlust deep within his being, Olaf is only truly alive when grappling with the jaws of death. The coastal peninsula of Lokvar is among the most brutal places in the Freljiord. There, rage is the only fire to warm frozen bones. Blood is the only liquid that flows freely, and there is no worse fate than to grow old, frail, and forgotten. Olaf was a warrior of Lokvar with no shortage of glories and no hesitation to share them. While boasting one evening with his clansmen over the burning embers of a razed village, one of the elder warriors grew tired of Olaf's bluster. The old fighter goaded Olaf to read the omens and see if Olaf's fortunes matched his gloating. Emboldened by the challenge, Olaf mocked the aged raider's envy and tossed the knuckle of bones of a long-dead beast to predict the heights of glory he'd achieve in death. All mirth left the gathering as the clansmen read the portents. The bones spoke of a long life and a quiet passing. Infuriated, Olaf stormed into the night, determined to prove the prediction false by finding and slaughtering Lokvar's feared frost serpent. The monster had consumed thousands, man and ship alike, in its long lifetime, and to die in battle with it would be a fitting end for any warrior. As Olaf hurled himself into the blackness of its maw, he fell deeper into the blackness of his mind. When the shock of freezing water roused him from the dark, there was only the butchered carcass of the beast afloat beside him. Thwarted, but not defeated, Olaf set out to hunt down every legendary creature with claws and fangs, hoping that the next battle would be his last. Each time he charged headlong towards his coveted death, only to be spared by the frenzy that washed over him while on its brink. Olaf concluded that no mere beast could grant him a warrior's death. His solution was to take on the most fearsome tribe in the Freljiord, the Winter's Claw. Sejuani appeared amused by Olaf's challenge to her warband, but his audacity would earn him no mercy. She ordered the charge and sent scores of her warriors to overwhelm Olaf. One by one, they fell until he lost himself in the bloodlust once again, effortlessly cutting a path to the leader of the Winter's Claw. The clash between Olaf and Sejuani rocked the glaciers with its force, and though he seemed unstoppable, Sejuani battled the berserker to a standstill. As they stood deadlocked, Sejuani's glare penetrated Olaf's berserker haze in a way no weapon ever could. His frenzy abated long enough for her to make him an offer. Sejuani swore that she would find Olaf his glorious death if he would lend his axe to her campaign of conquest. In that moment, Olaf vowed he would carve his legacy into the Freljiord itself. It's actually pretty neat. I didn't know that about Olaf. How about Volley Bear? Volleybers roar. I'm a trash volleyball player. Okay. The unforgiving northern reaches of the Freljiord are home to the Ursine, a fierce and warlike race that has endured the barren tundra for thousands of years. Their leader is a furious adversary who commands the force of lightning to strike fear within his foes. Volibear. Both a warrior and a mystic, Volibear seeks to defend the ancient ways and the warrior spirit of his tribe. Though history recorded their once legendary feats in battle, the Ursine now lived in a tranquil seclusion. The warriors were headed by a triumvirate of leaders who maintained a long-lived isolation, avoiding the petty affairs and conflicts of others. As shaman to the three, Volibear was a respected sage known for his insight. It was an era of unprecedented peace, but Volibear felt dread stirring within him. Prosperity was turning the tribe soft and weak, and many had long forgotten the sacred art of war. In time, Volibear felt the fire of their souls would be extinguished. When he revealed his misgivings to the triumvirate, they refused to listen and warned him to know his place. Seeking wisdom, Volibear undertook a perilous climb to the peak of the Ursine's sacred mountain, a place forever shrouded in a thundering maelstrom. The Eye of the Storm was said to bestow portents, and legend held that the tempest would mark the next great chieftain of the tribe. As Volibear ascended the peak, he was struck by an unnatural bolt of lightning. When the shaman awoke, he was possessed by a horrific vision of the Freljiord, utterly consumed by darkness. Volibear saw an unprepared and complacent Ursine force slaughtered by terrible creatures of ice. In an instant, he knew his race would perish if they did not prepare for war. Volibear rushed down the mountainside to recount what he had seen, but found the path blocked by 3 Ursine, the triumvirate. Knowing he would end the lasting peace, they refused to heed Volibear's warning and demanded his silence by his word or his death. Resolute and adamant, Volibear swore that the Ursine's very survival depended on his message, and launched into ferocious combat against the 3. A terrible clash ensued, and just as Volibear succumbed to his opponents, he called upon the power of the maelstrom. Unleashing raw lightning, he struck the trio down with a thunderous blow. Stunned and astonished, the triumvirate beheld the sign of Ursine leadership, the force of the sacred storm. Recognizing his foretold ascendance, the triumvirate appointed Volibear as the Ursine's new leader. His influence was swift and decisive. He roused his tribe from complacency, revived their battle-hardened traditions, and allied with Sejuani, the warrior who would fight with them against the coming evil. With time, the tribe grew lean and fierce, becoming known again as fearsome warriors of legend. Volibear and the Ursine now stand ready for the dark day that looms on the icy horizon. Dun, dun, dun. I already read all of those. See if I can't find another. And look at that. Boom. The heart of the Freljiord. Oh no. They don't have his. Weird. They don't seem to have his stuff on here. They have been working a lot to change a lot of things. I'll just read this. Blessed with massive muscles and an even bigger heart, Brahm is a beloved hero of the Freljiord. Every child born to the ice knows of his legendary strength, capable of felling entire forests of frost oaks in a single night, or rending the very mountains asunder. With a colossal vault door borne across his back as a shield, Brahm roams the land as a friend to those in need, and a terrible foe of evildoers. Today we fight as enemies. Tomorrow we may fight as brothers. Let's see if Trindamir, the barbarian king, has his on here. Fueled by his unbridled fury and rage, Trindamir cuts his way through the tundra, mastering the art of battle by challenging the Freljord's greatest warriors. The wrathful barbarian seeks revenge on the one who decimated his clan, and strikes down all those who stand between him and his final retribution. Struggling to survive in the harsh, frost-bitten Freljiord, the young Trindamir and his people warred with other tribes over the scarce resources of the land. One such battle changed his life forever. Raiders ambushed Trindamir's clan in the dead of night, and though his warriors were able to push the first wave of attackers back, they weren't prepared for the dark figure that next stepped forth. He wielded a cruel, living sword and inspired an unhinged bloodlust in the invaders with his unearthly magic. Trindamir's tribe was overrun within moments. With no hope of defeating the enigmatic being, Trindamir threw himself at certain death. The dark figure swatted him aside, mortally wounding the young barbarian. Trindamir saw death and destruction engulf his home as his life slipped away. No one was left standing. Only the screams of the dying remained. Unable to surrender to death, Trindamir gave in fully to his wrath. His blood boiled and his anger consumed him, banishing his mortality. He staggered to his feet, barely able to take hold of his sword, steeling himself for the decisive confrontation with the shadowy being. But the dark figure did not even lift his blade, and instead gave Trindamir a knowing smile as he withdrew into the shadows. That was the last time the barbarian ever saw his nemesis. A man robbed of his home and his people, Trindamir wandered across the Freljiord for years, vowing to forge himself into a brutal instrument of revenge. He visited all the tribes in the frozen wastes, besting each of their warriors until there were none left to challenge. In doing so, he mastered the barbarian ways of war and harnessed his anger as a force to be reckoned with. With sword in hand and rage in his heart, He is now on an undying quest for vengeance against the one who destroyed the life he once knew. Spoiler alert. It's Aatrox. Let's see if there's any other people in from the Freljiord that we haven't looked at yet. I really, really love all of the lore and background information that you can find on here. That's actually what got me into League in the first place, was the fact that I really, really loved the lore and the champion art. Nunu. Anybody else? I'm good. While I'm looking, I might as well finish looking, you know what I mean? Already did Sejuani. I really loved the Freljiord event that they did a while back. Well, pretty long while back. Cool. 3 left. Start with Nunu, the Yeti Rider. Okay. Sometimes bonds of friendship become stronger than even bonds of blood. When those bonds link a fearless boy to a fearsome Yeti, the bond becomes a force to be reckoned with. Given the responsibility of taming a terrifying beast, Nunu forged a friendship where others would have forged chains. Now, Nunu and his burly pal Willump are an inseparable pair who combine youthful exuberance and brute strength with the mythical powers of the Yeti to overcome obstacles insurmountable to any ordinary duo. Nunu had only the vaguest memories of his parents, or the time before he was part of the reclusive Frostguard tribe. Never welcome among his caretakers, Nunu's wanderlust and compassion often put him at odds with the tribe's elders, and the boy frequently dreamt of places far beyond the shadow of the Frostguard citadel. Sometimes he would do more than just dream, much to the frustration of his minders. There was never more apparent than when Nunu was apprenticed to the tribe's beastmaster and charged with the care of the creatures under his yoke. The Frostguard held a menagerie of the Freljord's wildlife at their beck and call, but unique among their collection was the Yeti, an uncommon creature with mystical qualities and raw physical strength. The Beastmaster taught Nunu that it was only a lean diet of plants and regular whippings that kept the vicious beast tame. But the more time Nunu spent caring for the creature, the more he learned that the Yeti was no feral monster. As he saw his new friend Willump growing weaker and sicker, Nunu began to sneak the Yeti scraps of meat, hoping to restore his health. Day by day, Willump grew stronger and not the slightest bit savage, contrary to the Beastmaster's claims. Nunu had hopes of convincing him that the Yeti posed no danger, but it wasn't meant to be. The next time Nunu came to deliver Willump a meal, he found the Yeti's cage shattered, with only a crude drawing inside signaling the Yeti's farewell. Without hesitation, Nunu rushed into the wilderness in search of his friend. When Nunu finally caught up to Willump, he found the Yeti cornered by the Beastmaster alongside a group of Frostguard warriors. Afraid that the men would hurt his friend, Nunu threw himself between the Yeti and the Beastmaster's lash, but the brutal man would not stay his hand. As the furious Beastmaster raised his whip once more, the Yeti swelled up with uncharacteristic fury. Even after so much mistreatment, it wasn't concern for himself, but for the boy who'd shown him kindness that finally pushed Willem too far. The Yeti raged and left the man bloodied in the snow. Terrified by Willem's fury, the remaining Frostguard warriors fled. Nunu realized there was no going back. He yelled at Willem to run before the men returned to kill him, but the Yeti refused to leave the young boy. Nunu was faced with a hard choice: abandon his sole friend and lead a life of captivity with the Frostguard, or strike out into the harsh wilds and leave behind the only home he knew. Nunu chose the only path that made sense. Leaping onto the back of the mighty Yeti, Nunu joined Willem in his greatest escape. The pair took their first steps into the wide world from which they had been kept for so long. That's a cute story. Trundle, the Troll King. Trundle is a hulking and devious troll with a mischievous streak. There is nothing he can't beat into submission and bend to his will, not even the ice itself. With his massive, frozen club, he chills his enemies to the core and runs them through with jagged shards of ice. Fiercely territorial, Trundle chases down anyone foolish enough to enter his domain and laughs as they bleed onto the tundra. Trundle's warband once followed a foolish and cowardly chieftain. Under such a weak leader, Trundle feared he and his kin would fall prey to the other troll hordes scattered across the tundra. When his challenge to the chieftain ended in humiliation, Trundle did something that wasn't very troll-like. Instead of his fists, he turned to his wits. Thinking on his hairy feet, he spun a tall tale about the troll leaders of old, claiming they wielded weapons of great power as symbols of their right to rule. Though he'd made up the story on the spot, Trundle wagered that if he could find or steal such a weapon, he would become the rightful leader of the warband. The trolls believed him, but none thought him capable of undertaking such a challenge. Knowing the boastful troll would die trying, the foolish chieftain agreed, and Trundle departed to the familiar sound of laughter. Alone but undaunted, Trundle ventured into the foreboding realm of the dreaded Ice Witch. There, hidden among the many ancient and dangerous secrets, he hoped to find a weapon to prove his elaborate tale. He outmuscled the Ice Witch's guards and outsmarted her dark magic traps, but nothing he scavenged matched the power he described to his kin. Finally, he found an unexpected prize. A huge and magical club of never-melting true ice. Grasping the weapon, he marveled at the cold power that ran through him. But then the the wrathful Ice Witch herself appeared. As she summoned her dark magic, Trundle believed he had met his end. But another clever idea struck him. With a knowing grin, he offered the Ice Witch a devious proposition. A troll army, he told her, would be of much more use to her than one troll corpse. When Trundle returned to the warband, his fellow trolls bowed to his conquest. Calling his weapon Bone Shiver, he took a moment to enjoy the look of numb shock on his chieftain's face before he caved it in. Seizing command, Trundle announced that there would no longer be chieftains, only a troll king before whom all of his kind would kneel. The trolls rallied behind their brash new leader and prepared for the coming war. With Trundle leading the charge, the time of the trolls had finally come. Oh boy. And finally, Udir, the Spirit Walker. More than a man. He is a vessel for the untamed power of 4 primal animal spirits. When tapping into the spirits' bestial natures, Udir can harness their unique strengths. The tiger grants him speed and ferocity, the turtle resilience, the bear might, and the phoenix its eternal flame. With their combined power, Udir can turn back all those who would attempt to harm the natural order. In the Freljiord, there is a unique caste that lives outside the society of those savage lands. They are the custodians of the natural world, the Spirit Walkers. Once a generation, a child is born under a blood-red moon. A child said to live between the 2 worlds of spirit and man. This child is brought to the Spirit Walker to continue the shamanic line. Udir was such a child, and knew the howl of the tundra wolves even before he learned the language of his ancestors. Through the Spirit Walker, Udir would one day learn the meaning of the spirit's calls and tend to the balance of nature. The Spirit Walker often told Udir he would be tested more than those who had come before him, for the spirits of the Freljiord were growing ever more restless, though the reason remained clouded. The answer arrived in the dead of winter, as Udir and the Spirit Walker were descended upon by a fearsome figure known only through frightened whispers, the Ice Witch. Knowing the boy would fall easy prey to her vile magic, the Spirit Walker shielded the child from her assault at the cost of his own life. Racked by grief, Udir howled with fury, and he felt the Freljiord itself howl within him. In that moment, the child embraced the spirit's primal nature and became a beast himself. Coursing with their untamed power, Udir's angry roar shook the mountaintops and brought down a torrential avalanche. Once Udir had finally clawed his way out of the frost, the Ice Witch was nowhere to be found. For years, the tribes of the north learned to avoid the wild man and his domain. Then, one day, Udir caught the scent of a fearless trespasser. Determined to chase the intruder from his territory, he attacked, only to be deflected with ease. The wild man launched himself at the stranger again and again, only to be effortlessly cast aside each time. Exhausted and defeated, Udir felt his animosity ebb and croaked a clumsy "hoo" to the stranger. Li Sin had come seeking the spirit walker's guidance and instead found a man who had also lost his way. The monk promised he would right Udir's path and guided him to a monastery said to be protected by 4 eternal spirits of great power and wisdom. There, Udir would find harmony. Li Sin brought Udir to a land that was a stark contrast to his birthplace. Survival was not the only law that governed the lives of Ionians or creatures of the land. For the first time, Udir felt at peace with the spirits surrounding him and found comfort in human companionship. His time among the monks taught him to temper his instincts, while his meditations with the ancient temple spirits taught him wisdom. Through them both, Udir learned to truly embrace his life as the next spirit walker. Udir owed much to the Ionians. It was a debt he was never asked to honor, but one he would ultimately repay many times over. When the armies of Noxus invaded, Udir did not stand idle as the brutal soldiers oppressed the peaceful Ionians. He had not forgotten how to bare his teeth. Udir leapt at their armies with all the ferocity of a cornered beast, and gave the invaders good reason to fear the wilderness. From the trees, his claws tore the Noxians down in scores. On the river banks, he threw them back like a flood, and in the fields he consumed them with searing wildfire. Only when the Noxians fled with their tails between their legs did Udir quell his rage. Peace returned to Ionia, but still, Udir felt something stirring him from his rest. The spirits of the Freljiord called out to him, warning of an unnatural evil emerging from the ice. Udir understood the true threat that the Ice Witch posed to his homeland. She was the herald of a greater darkness that would soon envelop the land. Armed with the potent spirits of the temple, Udir returned to the Freljiord, seeking to defend the natural world from all who would threaten its balance. Okay. That is the Freljiord. A brief history. Maybe sometime if you guys are into this, like I'll do the Demacia ones, or Piltover, Ionia, and I'll just go through and I'll read about each of them and I'll read you their character sheets. There are lots and lots of stories and background that you can find on here. So, if you're interested in something like that, let me know. And who knows? Maybe I'll change my language settings on here. And I'll read you some if you read the screen, it says it's like 7:10 in the morning, but that clock is like super wrong. It's more like 3 in the morning. So